Welcome, Creepaholics crew. Tonight we're creeping into the chilling mystery of Heather Elvis, a young woman full of life who vanished under deeply suspicious circumstances. The search for Heather captivated an entire community, but the truth of what happened that fateful night remains shrouded in darkness. Let's creep into it, shall we? Grab those flashlights. Lock those doors tight. Let's creep on down the dark and eerie trail together. Heather Elvis was born on June 30th, 1993 in Horry County, South Carolina, to a loving family who adored her. Growing up, Heather was known for her infectious smile, bubbly personality, and vibrant energy. She was a creative spirit, often experimenting with photography, music, and makeup, and she had big dreams for her future. At the time of her disappearance, Heather was working at a local restaurant called the Tilted Kilt. While taking classes in cosmetology, she was on top of the cusp of a new chapter in her life, learning to live independently in her early 20s and navigating the complexities of her relationship, work, and dreams. But like many young women, Heather's life was complicated by a romance that would ultimately play a central role in her disappearance. Heather had become romantically involved with a man named Sidney Moore, a much older, married man with children. The affair was intense, passionate, and like many such relationships, destined for disaster. Sidney worked as a repairman and often met Heather through his job, but it wasn't long before the relationship spiraled out of control. Heather's friends later reported that she had developed strong feelings for Sidney, but the affair came to a bitter end when Sidney's wife, Tammy Moore, found out. Tammy allegedly forced Sidney to cut off all contact with Heather, even monitoring his phone and social media accounts to ensure no further communication occurred. It seemed like Heather was trying to move on, but the emotional aftermath left a deep scar. As we'll see, the connection between Heather and the Moores was far from over. On the night of December 17th, 2013, everything changed. Heather had been on a date with another man and seemed to be in good spirits. She was trying to move forward with her life, and after the tumultuous end to her relationship with Sidney, after her date dropped her off at home, Heather called her roommate Brianna around 1:44 a.m. on December 18th. During their conversation, Heather mentioned she had plans for the future, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But at 1:53 a.m., Heather received a phone call from Sidney Moore, the first contact they had in over a month. What exactly was said during that phone call remains a mystery, but it was clear that Heather left her apartment soon after. Her phone records indicate that she drove to a remote area known as Peachtree Landing, a quiet spot by the Waccamaw River. And this is where Heather was last heard from. After 3:41 a.m., all communications from Heather's phone stopped. She vanished into the middle of the night, leaving behind her car, her phone, and the countless questions that remain unanswered today. Heather's family reported her missing on December 19th, 2013, after they were unable to reach her. Her car, a green Dodge Intrepid, was found abandoned at Peachtree Landing with no signs of foul play, but also no signs of Heather. Investigators scoured the area for clues, but there was little to go on. No DNA evidence, no clear sign of struggle. It was as if Heather had just simply disappeared into thin air. Authorities quickly focused their attention on Sidney and Tammy Moore. Phone records showed that Sidney had called Heather the night she vanished, and both Sidney and Tammy's phones were pinging near Peachtree Landing at the same time. Investigators believe the couple lured Heather to the landing, but without Heather's body or concrete evidence, it was a difficult case to build. The Moores were initially arrested on obstruction of justice charges after lying to the police about their whereabouts on the night Heather disappeared. But it wasn't until February 2014 that Sidney and Tammy Moore were charged with Heather's murder, even though her body was never found. The legal proceedings against Sydney and Tammy Moore were long and contentious, but were accused of kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, but the lack of a body made the case incredibly difficult. In 2016, Sydney went on trial for the kidnapping of Heather Elvis, but a mistrial was declared after the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict. Tammy Moore, however, faced her own trial in 2018. She was convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to 30 years in prison, despite the absence of Heather's body. The prosecution painted a picture of jealousy, revenge, and a deadly plot orchestrated by Tammy to rid herself of the woman who had come between her and her husband. In September 2019, Sydney was finally convicted of kidnapping Heather and received a 30-year sentence. Though the Moores were now both behind bars, the mystery of what happened still remains a mystery. Despite extensive searches and numerous theories, Heather Elvis's body has never been found. Her family continues to search for answers, holding out the hope that one day they might find out what truly happened to their daughter. The case of Heather Elvis serves as a tragic reminder of how quickly life can change, how a single night can lead to endless heartbreak and unanswered questions. To this day, Peachtree Landing remains a place of sorrow for those who knew and loved Heather, a haunting reminder of a life cut short far too soon. Before we wrap up, I'd like to remind you that listener support helps us, Creepaholics, going strong. You can support the show with a monthly donation of just 99 cents or $4.99. Every contribution helps us continue sharing these stories of crime, mystery, and the downright eerie. Click the support link wherever you're listening and join the Creepaholics crew in keeping these cases alive. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Creepaholics so you never miss a story of crime, mystery, or the downright eerie. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, keep your hearts open, your minds alert, and don't stop shining your light into the shadows. Remember, keep creeping it real, Creepaholics crew.